Remember, sine, you're in quadrants 1 and 4. So this is asking you what angle in quadrants 1 or 4. So I'm looking on this side. Take out your unit circles if you don't have it out. What angle has a sine value of root 3 over 2? And remember, sine is y. So what's my angle that I'm looking at for the first one? Pi over 3. So right here, this is where you have the square root of 3 over 2. That angle is 60 degrees or pi over 3. So that is the answer that I will be looking for. That is the answer. It's important to know your domain restriction because if you look at the entire unit circle, there's 2 angles that have that value. But I'm only looking for within my restriction for sine, which is 1 and 4. All right, what angle has a cosine of negative root 3 over 2? So for cosine, we're looking in quadrants 1 and 2. So in quadrants 1 and 2, what angle has a cosine of negative root 3 over 2? So that's right here on the unit circle. So that would be 5 pi over 6. Okay, now we have some composites, which is what we started on Friday in the video. So we're going to start by answering this question here. So what is the inverse cosine of negative root 2 over 2? So what angle, and then remember for cosine we're in quadrants 1 and 2. So what angle has a cosine of negative root 2 over 2? So that would be this. So we have the tangent of negative root 2 over 2, which would be 3 pi over 4. So now you're ready to answer that question. So first we found the inverse cosine to figure out the angle. And now you need to find the tangent of that angle. So what is the tangent of 3 pi over 4? I'll give you a hint. It's either 1 or negative 1. Negative 1. Okay, go ahead and copy down these 4 questions. So let's start off by figuring out, we start from the inside and work our way out. So we're going to begin by finding the cosine of pi over 2. So let's find pi over 2. And what is the cosine? 0. So now we're going to find the inverse cosine of 0. And the inverse cosine of 0 is pi over 2. So the trick when you have these is if this angle is within our restriction, which for cosine it's between 0 and pi, then I know my answer is going to be that angle. But until you're more comfortable with it, we'll just work through the entire thing until you get to a place where you can easily recognize what it is going to be. So let's look at this one here. So 5 pi over 4, let's start with 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4, what is the sine? Look at your unit circle and tell me the sine of 5 pi over 4. I'm actually going to rewrite this question a little higher. Okay. So what is the sine of 5 pi over 4? Negative root 2 over 2. So now we need to find the inverse sine of negative root 2 over 2. So remember, for inverse sine, we're looking in quadrants 1 and 4. So looking in quadrants 1 or 4, what angle has a sine value of negative root 2 over 2? So that would be here. So my final answer would be, you have to remember the restriction has to fall between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. So what is this angle on the unit circle written as a negative? So 7 pi over 4 is the same as negative pi over 4. So your answer would be negative pi over 4. So that's just this one. I just wrote it at the top because at the bottom I didn't know if you'd be able to see it. Okay, so let's look at tangent, inverse tangent of negative root 3 over 3. So tangent is the only one that we have to do some dividing for. So start off by figuring out which angle has a tangent of negative root 3 over 3. So take out your unit circles. Well, you should have them out by now. But first of all, if it's negative, I know that I'm in quadrant 4. Let's back up even further. So negative, for inverse tangent, I'm only looking in 1 and 4. Let's just start with that. So I'm not looking in 2 or 3. And because it's negative, I know I'm not in quadrant 1. So I have to have, it has to be an angle down here. Okay, so I know it's not the negative pi over 4, it's one of these two. So go ahead and figure out which angle has a tangent of negative root 3. So you need to take sine and divide it by cosine though to see which one is going to give you that answer. And then for this one, it is the negative pi over 3. So then when you go back in to take the tangent of negative pi over 3, you do get negative root 3. So that would be your final answer. And then our last one, the cosine of 11 pi over 6. Let me erase my little markings on my unit circle. Okay. So cosine of 11 pi over 6. So 11 pi over 6 is right here. And the cosine of this angle would be positive square root of 3 over 2. So you're taking the inverse cosine of positive square root of 3 over 2. Now you need to, because this is the inverse cosine, you need to look in domains 1 and 2 to figure out which angle in domains 1 or 2 has that value. So what angle has the value of positive square root of 3 over 2? And the final answer would be positive pi over 6. Okay, so let's go ahead and start looking at 7.2, which is still inverse trig, but we're going to go into the sisters. So take a moment to copy this down. And this is just talking about where we're going to look at for the inverses. So quadrants 1 and 2, that's cosine and its sister, and also cotangent. Quadrants 1 and 4, sine and the sister, and also tangent. So I'll give you a second to copy that down, and then we will work through a few more examples. All right, so take a minute, copy down these 6 questions, and I'll go ahead and number them. So just keeping in mind your restrictions for each one. Remember, when you are asked for the inverse means what is the angle. So what angle within the restriction that you just wrote down, what angle has a sine value of negative root 3 over 2? And what angle has a cosine of negative 1/2? Okay, so take a moment, copy it down, and see if you can figure out your 6 answers. And then we'll go through it together. So we're not looking at all 360 degrees. You have to know where you're going to look according to each ratio. That's why I had you write this down to start. So for number 1, sine, well, on my unit circle, even though sine is negative in 2 places, I'm not looking here. So this side is irrelevant. I'm only looking here. Where is sine negative root 3 over 2? So sine is negative right here. But you also have to remember that your restriction says negative 90 to positive 90. So you can't give me the answer when you take your test or quiz, your next assessment. If you told me the answer was 5 pi over 3, that's not within the range. Okay, so the answer you have to give me would be what? How do you write this as a negative angle? Negative pi over 3. See, it's a reflection across the x-axis. So this angle down here is the same as negative pi over 3. So that is the only answer that you could give me that would be full credit. Let's look at number 2. For number 2, 2's cosine, well, cosine is only looking at quadrants 1 and 2. So this part, 3 and 4, I'm taking off. So where is cosine negative 1/2? What angle has a cosine value of negative 1/2? 2 pi over 3. All right, cotangent. Now, cotangent and tangent, those sisters are split up, okay? Sine and cosecant, they stay together. Secant and cosine, they stay together, but cotangent and tangent, they go different directions. So cotangent, the restriction for cotangent is 0 to pi. Okay, so for cotangent, we're looking in quadrants 1 and 2. But for tangent, we're looking for quadrants 1 and 4. Okay, so that's why you have to kind of look at that, and it's because of how the graph is, where that shift happens. Okay, so for cotangent, still quadrants 1 and 2, what angle has a cotangent of positive 1? Well, we know that for it to be 1, it's one of your 45. So it's either this one or this one. But one of those is positive and one of those is negative. So which one is positive? Pi over 4. So the answer to number 3 is pi over 4. Secant is the sister to cosine. So if I'm looking for secant, I'm looking for where is my cosine. This is the same as saying where is the cosine negative 1/2. Because if the cosine is negative 1/2, the secant is negative 2. That's what that's asking you for. So looking on your unit circle, and again, we're still in quadrants 1 and 2, where is cosine negative 1/2? Because wherever cosine is negative 1/2, secant is going to be negative 2. So cosine is negative 1/2. Right here. So that means the secant is going to be negative 2 because it's the reciprocal. So my answer to number 4 is 2 pi over 3. For cosecant to be 2 root 3 over 3, what do you think the sign is for that to happen? If you take positive square root of 3 over 2 and you flip it, and then you rationalize it, right? So if you get, let me write it at the top, hold on. If you have positive square root of 3 over 2, and then I flip that and rationalize it, that's where you get 2 root 3 over 3. So 2 root 3 over 3 is the reciprocal of the square root of 3 over 2. So if I'm looking for 2 root 3 over 3, if cosecant is 2 root 3 over 3, then that means sine is positive square root of 3 over 2. So what angle, so now I need to adjust my diagram. Hold on, let me erase this. Because now I'm looking for sine and cosecant. Sine and cosecant, that's in quadrants 1 and 4. So this side goes away. So quadrants 1 and 4, where is sine positive square root of 3 over 2? it is pi over 3. Now tangent, you kind of have to, you'll become faster with those in time. But tangent is equal to sine over cosine. So one of these, and we know it's negative. So because it's negative, which quadrant am I looking at? It's either 1 or 4. So which one has a negative tangent, 1 or 4? 4. So that means I can cross this one out too. So I can centralize where I'm looking. It's going to be here. I know it's not this one because that's a negative 1. So you need to divide and figure out which one is going to give you negative root 3 over 3. So it's either negative pi over 3 or negative pi over 6. And it will be negative pi over 6 for this one. So if you actually divide it out, you'll see that that's when you would get that negative root 3 over 3. Okay, so we'll stop here. Take a minute and pull up your canvas and look and see when your homework is due. I did push stuff back a day, so can someone remind me, when did I think we're on homework 6. When is homework? I think it's Wednesday. All right, homework 6 is due Wednesday. Thursday, we don't have school because it's parent-teacher conference day. It's an e-learning day, so that means it'll be something posted for you to watch. And then we will finish up 7-2 tomorrow.